normally use the term trash or garbage here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We're a first-rate, classy outfit here, and we're talking about individuals who are trying. It's either their profession as a coach or they're a student athlete. So we don't use the term garbage or trash. Maybe about the college football playoff system or the scheduling in college football, about entities that are not personal. Yes, those are trash. They suck. But about individuals, no. But if I did use that term, it might apply to this particular football team. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We break it down like nobody else online. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. And here we go with Miami. Miami is not a good football team. They're not a good football team. So what defines a good football team? There are 130 FBS teams. There are roughly 70 Power 5 teams, of course, the 5 major conferences, plus the major independents. I believe that once you get into that 50 range, 40 to 50 teams in the nation that I would call good, decent, are going to win at least half of their games, depending on the schedule. Obviously, some teams have much tougher schedules than others. But a capable team, a team that's able to go out there and compete hard and compete with almost everybody in the country, excluding maybe the elite teams. But they can go out past the top 10 to 15 teams in the country, and they could possibly win a game. They will compete. They'll stay within a couple scores. Miami is not a good football team. Do they have the potential to be a good football team? Based on recruiting rankings, yes, they do. Based on what we see season after season after season after season, game after game after game, I'm not so sure. Of course, they got off to the 10-0 start with some of the same personnel in 2017, and then they proved to not be a very good football team again. One of the 20 or 25 best teams in the nation, and this is the best Miami team that we've seen in years. 15 years was in 2017, and they were a top 20 or 25 team when all was said and done. This team, I predicted to go 8-4, and maybe I overestimated this team because I gained and took on all sorts of criticism when I picked Miami to go 8-4. That how in the world would they lose 4 games? Well, they almost lost their third against the Chippewas. 17-12. I didn't watch the game. There are, and were on Saturday, 40 or 50 other games that were more important and should have been more competitive than this game, but this turned out to be a competitive game. So I just read the recaps, looked at the play-by-play, looked over the box score, but it's evident, it's obvious to see that Miami did not play well. And before you say that Miami was looking past Central Michigan, who are they looking past them to? A bye week? And they're not Ohio State. They're not Alabama. They're not Clemson to be looking past somebody. And even those schools and those teams are so good, they can look past somebody and beat them by 45 points. Miami's not good enough to look past anybody, number one. Number two, even if they look past somebody, they would probably fall into a situation like this where they almost lost. And I don't even know if that they looked past Central Michigan. Again, nothing to look forward to the next week. Play football. 17-12 for a 30-point favorite in Miami. A team that lost to Wisconsin 61-0. And yes, Wisconsin is very good. Very good. But is Wisconsin supposed to have better talent than Miami? Well, apparently they do. Or they're just better football players. They're a better football team. There's no question about that. I think we just saw them play last December in New York, 35-3. Wow. Miami scored 17 points, 17-12. This is a team in Central Michigan that gave up 17 against Miami. They gave up 21 points to Albany. Albany, if I wasn't familiar with my state capitals, I would be asking right now, where is Albany? Where's that football team? Where's that school located? Okay, Albany, New York. I know my state capitals. Probably nobody showed up at the game. 21 points they gave up to Albany. They gave up 24 points to Akron. to Akron, the Zips, one of the 5 worst offenses in FBS football last season. All right, Central Michigan collected 21 first downs, Miami 16. They moved the sticks better than Miami. Miami was 1 for 10 on third down. 1 for 10 on third down. So whether that's the offensive line doesn't get the push in short yardage, the quarterback doesn't make the right read or the right pass, or is not accurate on third down, or the receivers aren't getting just a little bit of separation to convert a third down, I can't imagine that the third downs were that long of conversions on a consistent basis. And if they were, that means Miami's offensive line and their play execution was not good enough on first and second down. Regardless, it's all on Miami being a poor offense, converting 1 out of 10 on third down. 301 total yards of offense for Miami. 301 total yards of offense in 2019 is deplorable. Miami ran for 51 yards. They rushed for 51 yards on 34 carries. I know that 4 sacks were included. Let's say that out of those 4 sacks that Miami lost about 30 yards in field position, they still would have only run for 81 yards. And we see teams get sacked 4 and 5 times every week and run for 150, 250 yards against these type of opponents and more. I would hate to look up to see how much Wisconsin rolled up on the ground against Central Michigan. They threw for 400 yards. Miami ran for 51 on 34 carries. That's 1.5 yards per carry. Again, 4 sacks because the college rule is screwed up, and they shouldn't count sacks against rushing yardage. But still, DJ Dallas, who I'm extremely impressed with. I think he is a top-flight back. Maybe not one of the very best in the nation, but he's very good. He's a top 20 or 25 back in the nation. 14 carries for 34 yards. That's awful. The Miami offensive line is atrocious. When Miami could have put this game away at 17-6, they gave up, this vaunted defense gave up a 17-play drive for a touchdown. Central Michigan had the ball and threw the ball into Miami territory, trying to score the touchdown that would win this game. No, they didn't get very close. Al Blades picked off the ball at his own 41, so they were not within striking distance, but they had the ball and moved it a little bit, 24 yards, to start to scare Miami fans. 17-12. Look at the defensive performance by both teams. Central Michigan and Miami both had the exact same havoc rate. 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss for both defenses. Each defense had the same number of disruptive plays behind the line of scrimmage. Miami fans have been making fun of, and I'm not saying all of you, some Miami fans have been making fun of Florida State in their 45-44 brush with disaster against Louisiana Monroe in overtime. So let's rate this pretty much in the same ballpark, Louisiana Monroe and Central Michigan. So make fun at each other because neither one of you is very good. You're bad. You're not good football teams. You play in the worst conference in America, and that's what we thought would save Miami this season, would be that they would be bolstered, propped up by a bad schedule. They're not even being propped up by a bad schedule. They can't even let that prop them up. They've got a bye week coming up. Then in October, it's a key Coastal Division stretch against not a bunch of world beaters. It's the Coastal Division. It's the worst division in college football. But will they navigate Virginia Tech, on October 5th? Virginia is at home on October 12th. Then Georgia Tech. So they have 3 consecutive conference games, division games at home. They have to win all those games. They should win all those games. Maybe I should stop saying that they should do this or do that. I did pick Virginia to win the division. I believe that Miami has the better talent on the roster, but Virginia's a better football team right now. Until Miami proves it on the field against Virginia, I will make that statement. Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech at home in the month of October, followed up to conclude the month with a date at Pitt. We know what happened the last time Miami went to Pittsburgh, and we know that a Florida team that is much better than Miami, UCF, went to Pitt and lost that game 35-34. So let's not look past Pitt either, even though they apparently looked past Central Michigan. What team across the country, what program that is supposed to be on Miami's tier, their level of status, and I may address this in a future video, where is Miami's status in college football? Historically, it's uneven. They have a tradition and not so favorable tradition, depending on the era. As our boy at State of the U likes to say, our man Cam Underwood, it's a microwave dynasty. It's a very short-lived dynasty that was dominant, but nothing otherwise. So I don't know where to place Miami exactly. I would have to think about it, put it into context, put it into perspective, and look at the numbers and the wins and losses and championships and so forth. I would put Stanford, Tennessee, and Florida State somewhat on the same level. Those are teams that we expect to be good teams. Maybe not great teams. Florida State would be at the high mark. Tennessee, based on their last 10 or 11 years, not so much. And, of course, Stanford's been a near and at times dominant program over the past 10 years that has fallen off. So those are the teams that are underperforming right now in regards to either tradition or status or resources, facilities, everything that they've got going for them and not performing to that level. Miami and Florida State and Tennessee, awful. Stanford, I would make the disclaimer that they have played very, very good competition, much better than Miami in Northwestern, Oregon, UCF, and USC. Those are Stanford's 4 games. There's not been a Bethune-Cookman or Central Michigan to lean on. Northwestern, Oregon, USC, and UCF for Stanford. They haven't played well. They're 1-3. Tennessee's been awful. They just lost to Florida by 31. They've won 1 game, and that was like a Central Michigan kind of team, Chattanooga. Florida State's awful. They've been awful. They did win an ACC game against Louisville. So this is the short list of underachieving programs right now. Miami, Florida State, Tennessee, and Stanford. And for Stanford, it's just been this year. So David Shaw, you've done an exceptional job, but your program has leveled off, is declining, and this has been a bad season and will continue to be most likely a bad season for Stanford. But this is only one. These other programs have been declining for years. All right. Is Miami football relevant? Should we address that topic? Maybe we will. Please let me know if you would like me to address the relevancy of Miami football in 2019 right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.